the question has been asked, how would a UFC BJJ team do in CJI 2 if somehow they were allowed to compete? And they're not going to be, because, there is no love lost between the two organizations, I think it's fair to say. But on this edition of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, with me, Ross, and him, Calum, we're going to have a look at 5 grapplers who could make up a UFC BJJ team, score them out of 5 as we do, score the coach out of 5, get an overall score out of 30, and then see how that sits with the rest of the teams that we've ranked. We've ranked all 8 teams taking part in the event thus far. So if you want to know how all the teams that are actually taking part in CJI have scored, go back and watch all those videos. They're easy to find on our YouTube channel. All right, let's get into this. Under 66, Mikey Musumeci. What do you think about Mikey in the context of a quintet tournament that we're going to see? And then what do you think would be a fair score to give Mikey?
Yeah, I think he's the biggest name on the team. I've seen him posting recently that he's just made it to over 1 million followers on Instagram. I think it's only him and Gordon in Jiu-Jitsu that's got that. So he's obviously a big name, had a big push from ONE and the UFC. Unfortunately, despite his big name and kind of his level in the sport, we've not seen him against the big names in the sport the last few years. That's been the biggest critique of him. Looking at his BJJ heroes, I don't see the Gabriel Souza match, but like that's the one, because obviously Gabriel beat him at that Who's Number One a few years back, and then he avenged that more recently. I can't remember if it was on ONE or if it was on another show. So, that's like showing that he can compete with the top guys. However, Gabriel does seem to be losing quite a lot of matches recently. Like he lost to Owen Jones ADCC. He lost to a local guy that probably only the UK guys will know in Hedrat Rashid from London. He got guillotined by him at the AIGA. So I don't know how good of a judge that is to compare Mikey's win to Gabriel Souza. In the past, though, he's beaten Diego Pato in the gi, beaten Bruno Malfacini in the gi, definitely racked up some big wins. It's kind of hard to place him, though, just because we've not seen him against the top guys. Had he had that match against Cade at ONE that was scheduled and done well against Cade or beaten Cade, I would have been happy enough, maybe pushing him towards 5 stars, but can't really do that. I think 4 stars would be fair, respecting his accomplishments and some of the names that he has beat. But could be wrong with that, and he could be a 3-star. Could be wrong with that, he could be a 5-star. I think as well, he's a little bit undersized for 66. It's not a cut for him. I think he probably sits below that at the weight that he is recently, whereas some of the guys are going to be cutting quite a lot of weight. So see how that plays into it. But I'm really excited to see him. Well, actually, I'm not excited to see him because I had it in my head there that we're actually going to get to see him at the event. This is obviously a hypothetical, but I would like to see him against the likes of Owen Jones and some of the other guys at that weight. But yeah, I think 4 stars for Mikey's relatively fair.
I think with the quintet format, I don't think Mikey relishes now taking on bigger guys.
Yeah.
He seems to like competing at a very light weight. So I'm not sure. We have seen him in the past, like, willing to test himself. And, like, I think his past record, like, yeah, there was a time when he was, world champion IBJJF, like, absolute 5-star grappler. And just haven't seen him up against the top level of competition that exists enough recently. I think 4 is fair. I've listened to arguments putting him, like, based on his run over the last couple of years, that he's more pitching at 3 right now.
Yeah.
But I think that you have to take into account, like, his overall career. I would say as well, like, in this format, like, he is quite obsessive on legs, so that can be a good thing because he could potentially take out someone bigger. Could be a bad thing, like, could just result in him going up against someone with a good leg lock defense and then just drawing the match and being eliminated. So happy to go with 4. Would like to see him face better competition. I think him being involved in an event like this would be a gateway to that, which would be awesome to see. But let's say 4 stars. Under 77, Carlos Henrique, who kind of first came to my attention. Like obviously he's done more, but I didn't really know much of him until there was the Road to the Title reality show that ultimately resulted in him winning the lightweight title. Then I went back, had a little look at what he's done before. I think he won IBJJF Brown Belt Worlds in 2022. And then he's won Pan Nogi at 23. I think he's traded wins and losses with Max Hansen, who in a previous episode of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, we scored it 2 stars. So perhaps that's where we go with Carlos. Very well-rounded grappler, particularly good on top. But what do you think, Cal?
Yeah, so some of the names that he's beat Ellis Younger in the semis of Nogi Worlds, then lost in the final to Dante, who we've got at 4 stars for this weight. Recently on the UFC BJJ, he beat Isaac Doderline and Gianni Grippo, which is 2 pretty big names. He's also got a win over Max Hansen, who we put at 2 stars, but he's also lost to him as well. So, you know, some big wins recently, but rating the likes of Isaac and Gianni and Nogi would maybe put them more towards 2 stars. So, difficult one. I would say probably a very solid 2 stars for him.
Yeah, I think a solid 2 right now is fair. Could be pushing 3. A good performance in a tournament like this could put him over the edge to 3. As I've said, like try not split hairs too much between like guys who are on borderlines between one or the other. I think 2 stars right now is fair enough. Under 88, Andrew Tackett.
Yeah, so Andrew Tackett is moving up from his natural weight class of 77, so need to take that into consideration. I think, you know, you've kind of got Mika and Cade arguably at the top of the 77, then you've got so many other guys. Like, there needs to be some sort of show that gets all these guys together, because you've got the likes of Dante, PJ, Levi, you've got Andrew, you've got Joseph Chen. Like, need to get all these guys together in some sort of bracket, but he's kind of in that echelon with those other guys, I would say. You could even make the argument that he's kind of at the top of that, because I think he beat PJ Barge, who's number 1, and then he, out of their 2 matches, he's got the more recent win of Joseph Chen. We scored PJ 4 stars at 88, so I think it's only fair to score Andrew at 88 as well, taking into consideration that he is moving up. I think a very strong 4 stars at 77 would be a definite, but to be honest, just with his style, I could see him going after like a Badoni, like a rabid dog, blast doubling him, just running circles around his guard and not giving in until he gets the pass. Could also see Badoni getting a hold of him and kind of holding him down from top, but I could see that match going either way, to be honest. So I would be quite happy to score Andrew 4 stars at 88 kilos.
Yeah, 4 stars right now. I think potentially 5-star grappler in the future could get to that like upper echelon of the sport. Great idea for a tournament with all these guys. That would be something I think everyone would want to see. Hopefully not done through exclusive contracts, and then guys can just go in, do that tournament, and then go back and do other tournaments, and they're not tied down. But anyway, we're giving Andrew 4 stars. I think to make this team, we have to move a couple of guys up weights. So now we're going to put William Tackett at under 99. We have actually seen William compete at higher weight class, because he went up into the heavier division at the first CJI, so Andrew could not be in the same division as his brother at the first CJI. He's given pretty good accounts of himself over the years against heavier grapplers as William. What do you think?
Yeah, William is amazing. He's got some wins against some bigger grapplers, like you said. He lost that match against Joe Hocha. I think he got a concussion in the match. As someone that was suffering with concussion issues at the time, when I seen his head hit the mat the way that it did, I was like, there's no way he's not got a concussion from that. And I think he said afterwards that he did have, and it looks like his performance dipped off after that head knock, but he was looking quite good in that match earlier on. He's had some very impressive wins like before and after that. Looked really dominant against the likes of Owen Flanagan and other guys in and around his weight class. I think just because of the fact that he's moving up and he's not had quite as big name wins as his younger brother as of late and like super dominant performances. I think at 99, because he wasn't the biggest, he's like filled out into that weight class for sure now, and he's not out of place, but like he was 77 not long ago. So I think him at 99, 3 stars would be reasonable. I can still see him doing fairly well in the competition against guys around that weight, but I think 3 stars for him, given the fact that it is such a big jump in weight.
Do you think if he was 88, he would be 4 stars, like alongside PJ and Joseph Chen?
When you put it like that, yeah, I think that would be pretty nailed on. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd actually really like to see him against Giancarlo. I think that would be a very interesting match to see, and I could see that going either ways. But yeah, when you compare it to the likes of PJ and his younger brother getting moved up and still getting 4 stars, I think at 88, him getting 4 stars is pretty fair.
But we'll give him 3 just because of the under 99 situation. And then Mason Fowler, we're putting it over 99. So, like, realistically, you could sort of like drop Andrew down to 77, drop William down to 88, drop Mason down to under 99, and then bring in a UFC heavyweight. Let's put Tom Aspinall in there.
Yeah.
He's got good jiu-jitsu. And then make a team that way, right? So what would you score Tom Aspinall? Like, would have to be like 2 stars in the context of this, right? But I think he'd be a very difficult guy to put out, you know?
Yeah, I think he would, with his like athleticism and speed, if he decided he's not going to the mat, I think he could waste a lot of time on the feet and not getting taken down. And then, yeah, probably fairly difficult to do anything to on bottom as well. But yeah, probably 2 stars.
And I say Tom Aspinall because he's still active. I mean, it looks like John Jones might come back. You could have John Jones as the over 99 representative as well. Probably be a similar situation to Tom, although I think John might have slightly more submission threat with chokes. Anyway, we're not. I think that would be awesome, but that's not the question that was asked. The question that was asked was how would these 5 guys do in the tournament? And the 5th guy at the heaviest weight is Mason Fowler. So let's talk about Mason and not like the dream scenario of John Jones or Tom Aspinall being the big guy in the team.
Yeah, so Mason has some pretty big wins in the past. I think he's beaten Craig. It's under a EBI rule set, so how much you value that is up to your own discretion. But I think he's beaten Craig on 2 separate occasions. In EBI overtime, he's got a lot of wins in that rule set. He beat Giancarlo Bodoni by referee's decision at Who's Number One, and then he got a submission victory over Pedro Marinho fairly recently via arm triangle on one of the UFC cards. However, he was an 88 guy not long ago and then moved up to under 99. So him being the over 99 guy, again, you're going to have to dock some points for that. I think 3 stars. I think he's still a pretty solid grappler at any weight. Even if he was at under 99, I would still maybe put him at 3 stars, considering we're putting guys like Kynan, who's consistently beating him, at 4 stars. I think 3 stars for him. At under or over 99 would be fair, but he's at over 99, so 3 stars.
Okay. That gives us 16 points for the athletes, and then we still have the coach to score. Not sure who the coach would be. I'm going to go Claudia Gadea and not Dana White. because I think she knows more about jiu-jitsu than Dana. But let's just say it's Claudia who seems to be running the UFC Jiu-Jitsu organization that takes the reins as her coach. I think the only issue is I've not really seen her as a Jiu-Jitsu coach, and it's hard to score as a general manager because this team's just been assembled by guys who are in the promotion. Although you could make the argument that she has signed the guys that are in the event. But anyway, I think what we're looking at like a lower star rating then. Just for context, we gave Eddie Bravo 2. I think we gave Faris 1 because like he's an athlete and not a coach. And we had question marks about the assembly of the team and whether that was the strongest team that Europe could put out. So can't really score him as a coach, and then like we're questioning the general manager situation. So I think it's tough to score Claudia. Ultimately, I don't think it really matters because right now the UFC team are sitting on 16, right? Which puts them level with the overall score of Australasia and the overall score for PSF, right? So we would have this team as our 4th seed if they were in the event, because New Wave of 24, Atos 23, B-Team 20, then you would have the UFC BJJ team coming in at, what are we going to say, 1 star for Claudia, puts them on 17, 2, 18.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would say 1 star. Like the only, maybe this is out of ignorance, but I really don't know much about her. I just remember her rivalry with Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in the day, and then don't really know much about her outside of that. I know her strengths in MMA were grappling. I don't know if she's got much accomplishments in pure jiu-jitsu. Don't know if she's in any sort of coaching role outside of, well, she's not really in a coaching role in the UFC BJJ anyway. She just seems to be like the brand representative for it. So I don't really know of any reason to rank her higher than 1 star. If you guys know of any, then let us know in the comments. But yeah, I don't really have a justification for putting her above 1 star.
Yeah, and then so that gives us 17 for the UFC BJJ team. I think we've said along the way we might give 1 more point to William. It could be persuaded. 1 more point to Mason, possibly could be persuaded. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think they're going to bridge the gap of the 3 points that exists between them and B team right now. So I think like having this UFC BJJ team as a 4th seed, just ahead of Australasia and PSF, I think sounds about right to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like just without over analyzing it, just looking at the lineups on paper is a very solid lineup, and I would put them in the upper echelon with the other 3 strong teams, but just below, which is where they're at. And not the strongest coach, but apart from that, is a pretty solid team. They've only got 1 2-star. The rest of them are comprised of 3 and 4 stars, so that is a very solid lineup, especially compared to some of the other teams. So yeah, I think 4th seed would be pretty fair.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting if, like, you know, if Gordon Ryan did the reality show, then he would be the over 99 guy, and then like the whole team would go up massively because you get maximum 5 stars for Gordon, and then Mason drops down the division. He probably gets scored higher. Same with William, you know, Andrew.
Yeah.
Possibly, you know what I mean? So like you could have a UFC BJJ team if Gordon had done that show. Maybe even if Craig had done the show, that would be like right up there rivaling in a rivalry with the other top teams. But anyway, we just thought we'd score it out for the pod. Hope you enjoyed it. It's not going to happen, but interesting conversation piece. So let us know in the comments what you think. And yeah, we'll be back soon with more coverage of what is actually going to happen in CJI. And maybe a couple other things that we've thought about might make for interesting ideas for the event. Anyway, speak to you soon.